Lawler is joining me now. So great to have you here, and congratulations once again on your win.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
So let me get first and foremost to the race, right? That's very tight in the weeks leading up to into where we are today, right? The race was very closer than we thought when it came to you against Mondaire Jones. What was the final thing you think made voters come to you?
Look, I think people appreciated the way that I've approached the job over the last 2 years. I was rated the fourth most bipartisan member of Congress. We passed 10 bills in a divided government, 5 of which were signed into law by President Biden. And we brought back more than double what Mondaire Jones brought back to the district in his 2 years in Congress in terms of community project funding, bringing back over $70 million. I think people appreciate the way that I've approached the job. I go into every community. We did over 1,000 events during my 2 years in district and really built the coalitions that we needed to have a resounding victory, winning by over 25,000 votes in a district that has 85,000 more Democrats than Republicans, and that Joe Biden won by 10 points just 4 years ago.
You know, Congressman, a lot of questions now on what exactly will happen with the House, right? You just heard me lay out the numbers there, who will be in control, and still as of this interview, it's too early to call. But you told me earlier this week when I spoke to you that you feel confident that Republicans will hold on to control. Now, Democrats did flip 2 seats in New York. They need 4 overall. So why so confident?
Well, we offset the losses in New York by picking up 2 in Pennsylvania and 1 in Michigan. We held on in Iowa and Nebraska. And the remaining seats to be called are in Colorado, Arizona, California, and Alaska. We're going to flip the seat in Alaska. I think we hold on in Arizona. We might pick up a seat in Colorado when all the votes are counted. And it looks like we're going to hold in California and potentially flip one. So, you know, we're looking at anywhere from a majority that has 221 seats, which is what we're currently at, or 223. I think, you know, ultimately, coupled with the flips in the Senate and obviously President Trump's historic victory, not only winning every swing state, but winning the national popular vote for the first time since George W. Bush did in 2004 as a Republican. I think voters sent a very clear message. They want us to focus on the economy, on the border, on energy policy, as well as the international crises, and reassert America's role in the world, and, you know, really follow the doctrine of peace through strength. And I think we're going to have a lot of work ahead of us come January, including lifting the cap on salt as part of a renegotiated tax bill. And I'm looking forward to being part of a majority to get things done on behalf of the people of New York and the 17th District.
So you just answered my question on your take on President-elect Trump winning and winning the popular vote, too, which was historic, especially since it wasn't since Grover Cleveland that a president, you know, left office and then won again. So let me ask you about bipartisanship, right? Because that is something you talked about a number of times throughout the campaign. You talked about it during the debate as well, right? But if you have control of the Senate, you have control of the House, if it goes your way, and you have the presidency, how do you see bipartisanship playing out? Do you think it's something that you and others on the Republican side should still strive for?
Oh, look, absolutely. Obviously, the American people gave us a majority in the House, the Senate, and the White House to advance important legislation and advance, you know, policies on the issues that we've talked about. But I have been rated the 4th most bipartisan member for a reason. I work with colleagues on both sides who are serious about wanting to get things done. And I think one of the things that I would say to my Democratic colleagues, especially those from New York and the tri-state area, is, look, we shouldn't have a repeat of the first Trump administration where it was, quote unquote, the resistance. Where you disagree with Donald Trump and House Republicans, that's fine. State it, negotiate, try to find common ground and compromise. But we shouldn't just be trying to obstruct. I think the American people, by large numbers, made it very clear they want us to address the cost of living. They want us to secure the southern border and stop this massive influx of migrants into the United States. They want us to deal with the international crises, including what's happening in the Middle East and in Ukraine, as well as the threats emanating from China. So there's a lot of work ahead of us. I think bipartisanship is a two-way street. And I think it's important for my Democratic colleagues to find area of commonality with Republicans here, and I will continue to outreach my hand to make sure that we find area of compromise. Again, my district is a district that requires compromise, requires bipartisanship. Right. And I will continue to do that.
And I want to talk about the economy, but I want to get your take, Congressman, on an issue that came the day after the election, okay? Black Americans across the country, including in New York, received these racist text messages alluding to slavery. So why do you think this happened immediately following the election results? And what do you have to say to whomever is behind this?
Well, I think it's absolutely disgusting. Whoever is behind it, it went out across the country, including residents in my district received it. It's disgraceful. I don't know who sent it. Obviously, I don't think anybody knows who sent it. And I think it's imperative that the FBI, which is investigating it, get to the bottom of it very quickly and hold those who sent it out accountable. I think there's no question this is the type of conduct and rhetoric that is just unbecoming and really seeks to divide this country. You saw on Election Day, large numbers of Black Americans, Latinos, supported Donald Trump and moved to the right because they're focused, like everyone else, on the issue of affordability, on the issue of public safety, on the issue of the border crisis, and they want results. That's what the focus has to be. And this kind of shameful conduct, whoever sent it, needs to be held. They need to be held accountable, and I hope the FBI gets to the bottom of it very quickly.
So you're talking about affordability, right? And thank you for answering that. I want to talk about that being the #1 issue. And even though there are signs of improvement, right? You look at the stock market, you look at the decrease in inflation. Americans clearly stated they want change because they do not feel that when they're at the kitchen table. So what are steps that Republicans will do to make speedy improvements? I mean, on day 1 of the presidency, when President Trump is inaugurated back into office, what do you think could happen to effectively make people feel that prices are going down?
Look, most Americans are not focused on the day-to-day of the stock market. What they're focused on is when they go to the grocery store and they get their bill, or when they go to the gas station and they see the price of gasoline, or when they get their utility bill in the mail, or when they go to pay their mortgage or rent. Everything is up astronomically over the last 4 years, and that has been the driving factor for why over 70% of Americans thought we were headed in the wrong direction. So, #1, we need to rein in federal spending, which we started the process of in this Congress, reining in spending by $2.1 trillion over the next decade, capping federal spending at 1% growth for the next 6 years. #2, we need to have a tax bill that really focuses in on reducing taxes for middle-class and working-class families, including lifting the cap on salt.
But will that help the grocery price?
Is a big. Well, listen, all of it goes hand in glove. You need to absolutely bring down the cost of living, and that starts in part with taxes. In addition, you need to have increased domestic production of energy. Energy is critical to the cost of manufacturing. It's critical to the cost of transportation. It's critical to the cost of construction. That impacts housing costs. It impacts grocery costs. It impacts the cost of goods. So energy policy is critical. We also need to re-examine all of the trade policies. When you look at what China controlling the supply chain, that has a tremendous impact on costs. Just look at, for instance, prescription drugs. We need to get the prescription drug precursors back in the United States, the manufacturing of that. So there's a lot that needs to be done very quickly.
Yeah, I'm up against the clock here, but I want to ask you about tariffs for a moment, because tariffs are something the president used along the campaign trail, and economists say that tariffs will actually make these American goods that you're talking about more expensive. So do you believe that tariffs are an answer to some of the kitchen table issues? And do you, if they are used, will price of goods go up?
Look, tariffs are part of the answer. It is a tool. It is a tool to force change in trade policy between the United States and other countries, including China and including Europe. You look at the cost of prescription drugs. Europe puts price caps in place on American prescription drugs, which is part of the reason why Americans end up paying more for prescription drugs than Europeans. So there's a lot that can be done from the standpoint of tariffs as a tool to hold other governments accountable when it comes to trade policy.
But can it also increase the cost of goods?
It depends on how you use it. We're not saying you use tariffs on everything. You look at cars, for instance. Obviously, we manufacture cars here in the United States. there are trade practices and policies put in place by other countries prohibiting American cars coming into the marketplace. So tariffs can be used effectively when it comes to trade policy and when it comes to American goods being sold in other markets, which obviously impacts cost as well. So look, tariffs alone are not the solution, but tariffs are part of the solution when you couple it with coherent tax policy and regulatory policy and energy policy here in the United States.
Just the beginning of the conversation, but once again, a congrats to you. I'm sure this is one of many conversations we'll have along this term. Great to have you here, Congressman.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.